Mary Magdalene knew something about water that most of us have completely forgotten. Not water as a symbol, not water as metaphor. Water as a living, breathing, conscious intelligence that can reach into the layers of your soul and pull out what doesn't belong there. And here's what gets me every single time I think about this. We use water every single day. Every morning. Every night. We drink it, we carry it, we cry it. And most of us feel absolutely nothing different afterward. Spiritually, I mean. We move through our day carrying the exact same heaviness we woke up with. The same weight. The same dullness. The same sense that something inside us is dimmer than it should be. That's not because the teaching doesn't work. That's because nobody gave us the teaching. What was handed down through mainstream religion was a cleaned up, stripped down version of something that was once extraordinarily precise. The original teaching, the one that Mary carried, wasn't about ritual for the sake of ceremony. It was a working technology, a practice so exact, so rooted in the actual nature of water and the actual nature of the soul, that when you do it correctly, something genuinely shifts. I'm not talking about feeling relaxed. I'm not talking about a nice moment of calm. I'm talking about something you can feel in your energy field. Something that changes the quality of how you move through the rest of your day. The kind of clean that isn't just physical. The kind of light that doesn't come from outside you. It comes from something being uncovered inside you. We've been handed religion without the inner mechanics. Ceremony without the engine. And the people who kept the engine, the people who understood what water actually does at the level of the soul, were pushed to the margins. Their writings were hidden. Their traditions were called dangerous. Mary Magdalene was one of those people. And what she knew about water is something you deserve to know too. So let's start at the beginning. Not the beginning religion gave you. The real beginning. Let me be honest with you about something right away. Everything you were taught about Mary Magdalene, almost everything, was decided by people who had a very specific interest in keeping the inner teachings away from ordinary people. The version of her that survived into popular consciousness was carefully constructed, diminished, reduced. She was not a sinner who got redeemed. That story was inserted into history in 591 AD by Pope Gregory I, centuries after her life. It was a political move, not a spiritual truth. Most serious scholars, including Elaine Pagels, the Princeton University professor and historian who spent decades excavating the hidden gospels of early Christianity, have noted that Mary held a position of genuine spiritual authority in the earliest Christian communities. Not peripheral, central. But here's what matters for what we're doing today. In the mystical traditions that operated outside of, and often underneath, official religion, Mary was understood very differently. She was seen as the carrier of the inner teaching. The teaching that said you don't need an institution between you and the divine. You don't need permission. You don't need someone else to touch the sacred on your behalf. You can do it yourself. That is a radical idea. It was radical then. Honestly, it's still radical now. Because if people truly understood that, if people really believed they had direct access to divine intelligence, a lot of very powerful structures would lose their grip almost immediately. In these hidden traditions, Mary Magdalene is consistently associated with Sophia. And if you're not familiar with that name in this context, Sophia is the feminine principle of divine wisdom in Gnostic and mystical theology. She is not a goddess in the way mythology uses that word. She is more like a quality of divine intelligence, the knowing that lives in feeling rather than in doctrine, the wisdom that comes through direct experience rather than inherited belief. And Sophia's element, across every tradition that names her, is water. This is not an accident. Water and feminine divine wisdom are linked because they share the same essential quality. They move into every available space. They don't force. They penetrate. They find their way through any obstacle not by breaking it, but by flowing around it, beneath it, and through it. Mary, as the carrier of Sophia's teaching, understood that water wasn't just physically present in our world. It was one of the places where divine intelligence was most directly accessible to human beings. Most touchable, most intimate. And right now, in a world that is spiritually exhausted, tired of performance, tired of religion that doesn't touch the inside of anything, this matters more than almost anything else I can think of to share with you. Because the door she left open is still open. Let me show you what's on the other side of it. There was a young woman who came through the dark toward Mary Magdalene's door. The village was completely silent. The sky still black at the center, bruising slowly purple at the very edges where dawn hadn't quite decided to begin yet. This woman, one of the inner circle, one of the ones who had left everything behind to be close to the teaching, had not slept. Not because of a specific grief, not because of a named fear. Something else. Something heavier and harder to locate than that. Like she was wearing a second skin made of other people's pain. Like the air around her had thickened into something she could not move through cleanly. Like a light inside her that was once bright had been, not extinguished, but covered, layered over, dimmed by accumulation. She knocked. Mary opened the door almost immediately, as if she was already awake, as if she knew. She looked at the young woman for a long moment. No pity, no diagnosis, no flood of reassuring words. Just that quality of seeing, completely still, completely present, that the people closest to her always described as the thing that made her different from every other teacher they had ever encountered. The kind of seeing that doesn't need you to explain yourself. She stepped aside. The young woman entered. Mary moved to the corner of the room without speaking. She lifted a clay vessel. She poured water into a cup, slowly, deliberately, the way someone pours something that matters. She held the cup in both hands for a moment, her eyes closed, her breathing slow and even. Not performing, not praying in any outward sense. Just present with the water. Fully, completely present with it. Then she turned and held the cup out to the young woman. The young woman reached for it with one hand. Mary shook her head once, slightly, and she waited. The young woman understood. She took the cup in both hands. Then Mary spoke. And when she did, her voice was quiet. Not soft, quiet. There is a difference. Soft is gentle. Quiet is precise. She said, "Before it touches your lips, know what you are asking it to take." That's all. No elaboration. No explanation. Just that one sentence hanging in the air between them like a lamp. The young woman stood there holding the cup in both hands and closed her eyes. She stopped trying to think her way through what she was feeling. She dropped her attention from her head into her chest, and she began to find what was there. The names came slowly at first, and then more easily. Old anger she thought she had released. Grief from losses she had decided were finished. The accumulated residue of walking beside suffering every single day. Other people's fear and pain that had settled into her field like sediment into still water. She named each one. Silently. Honestly. Mary stood across from her and said nothing. Did nothing. Just held the space with that unshakable stillness. The kind of stillness that doesn't ask anything from you except that you be real. When the young woman opened her eyes, Mary gave a single, small nod. The young woman brought the cup to her lips. She drank, slowly, fully present with every swallow. And something happened. Not lightning, not vision. Something quieter and more real than either of those things. A loosening in the chest. A subtle but unmistakable shift, like a window being opened in a room that had been closed for far too long. The dimness didn't vanish, but it began genuinely to lift. Mary watched, and then she said the one other thing she said in this entire exchange. 7 words. Simple enough to miss entirely if you're not listening from the right place. The water goes where you send it. Now stay inside that scene for just a moment before we move forward, because every single detail of what just happened carries precise meaning that explains exactly why the practice you're about to learn actually works. Why did Mary hold the cup in both hands before she gave it? Because in the esoteric understanding of the body's energy system, both hands together create a closed circuit of the body's own bioelectric field. She was bringing the water into her energy field before it reached the student. She was speaking to it, not with words in that moment, but with presence, with conscious intention. She was activating the water's deeper layers before it ever touched the young woman's lips. Why did she insist on 2 hands when the student reached for it with one? Because the receiving posture matters as much as the giving. 1 hand is casual contact. 2 hands is conscious reception. The difference between those 2 things is the difference between drinking water and doing what we are talking about today. Why the naming before the first sip? Because in Mary's teaching, acknowledgement is not a warm-up. It is the first essential movement of the entire practice. What you will not name, you cannot release. What you cannot release, the water cannot receive. The naming is not weakness. The naming is the door opening. And why? The water goes where you send it. Because that single sentence is the entire teaching compressed into 7 words. Water is not passive. Water is not neutral. Water is a living intelligence that responds to conscious direction. And when you drink it with full presence, with clear intention, with genuine acknowledgement of what you are carrying, it does not just hydrate your cells. It moves through the interior of you like light through a corridor, cleaning as it goes. Mary wasn't being kind to a struggling student. She was transmitting a technology that she knew with complete certainty worked. And you're about to receive the same transmission. Water is not what you think it is. I know that sounds like something printed on a motivational poster. I'm asking you to set that reaction aside for a moment and actually sit with the idea. Because what I'm about to tell you changes everything about the practice we're building toward. Dr. Masaru Emoto, the Japanese researcher who spent the better part of 3 decades studying the effect of human consciousness on water at a molecular level, found something that the scientific establishment largely didn't want to deal with. When he exposed water samples to different words, emotions, music, and intentions, then froze those samples and photographed the crystals that formed, the results were consistent and stunning. Water exposed to words like love and gratitude formed symmetrical, complex, breathtakingly beautiful crystalline structures. Water exposed to hostility, fear, and contempt formed fractured, chaotic, asymmetrical patterns. Same water, different consciousness applied to it. Now, I know the immediate scientific response to Emoto's work is to question the methodology. That's fair. Science is supposed to do that. But here's what I find more interesting than the debate. His findings are not isolated. They are the modern, laboratory-flavored echo of something that every single major wisdom tradition on Earth has always known. Water responds to consciousness. That's not a new discovery. It's a rediscovery. In the hidden teachings, the ones that Mary's tradition preserved, water is understood to exist on 3 distinct layers simultaneously. The first layer is the physical layer. H2O, the molecular structure that science can measure, photograph, and analyze. This is the layer most of us think is the whole thing. It isn't. The second layer is the etheric layer. This is the life force dimension of water, the layer that interacts with the life force field of living beings. When water is alive, spring water, river water, rain water, it carries an etheric charge that has a measurable effect on the subtle body of anyone who comes into contact with it. This is why fresh spring water feels genuinely different from tap water that's been sitting in pipes. It's not just mineral content. It's etheric vitality. The third layer is the Akashic layer. This is the deepest one. And this is where it gets extraordinary. The Akashic layer of water is its capacity to hold memory, impressions of consciousness, patterns of emotion and intention that have been directed into it. This layer is why water that has been used in sacred practice for generations feels different from ordinary water. It has accumulated, in its own way, a kind of wisdom. When you pick up a glass of water in the morning, completely distracted, thinking about your emails and your schedule, you are interacting only with the first layer. You are hydrating your cells and nothing more. But when you pick up that same glass consciously, with your full attention, with deliberate intention, with the specific awareness of what you are asking the water to do, you engage all 3 layers simultaneously. And that is when drinking water becomes a soul practice. Here is my honest personal feeling about this. I think mainstream spirituality keeps this deliberately vague. Not always through conspiracy, but through the slow erosion of precision over generations. We've kept the word cleansing and lost the method. We kept the ceremony and discarded the engine. What Mary Magdalene preserved was the engine. And the engine is this. Water is a living consciousness that is waiting to be spoken to. And it has been waiting, patiently, without complaint, every single morning when you pick up your glass and look straight through it. Have you ever felt spiritually dirty? Not morally. Not guilty about something specific. Just heavy, like something was on you that you couldn't name or locate, but could absolutely feel. Like you'd been around too many difficult people, or too much pain, or too much noise, and something of it had stuck to you without your permission. That feeling is real. It has a name in the ancient world. The Greeks called it miasma. And before you dismiss that as superstition, understand what they actually meant by it. Miasma was not a moral judgment. It was not punishment. It was not bad energy, in the vague, imprecise way modern spirituality uses that phrase. Miasma was understood as spiritual residue. Accumulation. The impressions left on the subtle body by intense emotional experience, by proximity to suffering, by unprocessed grief, by places and people whose energetic signature is chaotic or hostile. Think of it this way. If you spend an hour in a room full of smoke, the smoke doesn't just stay in the room. It gets into your clothes, your hair, your skin. You carry it with you when you leave. You can smell it on yourself. Miasma works the same way. Except instead of smoke, it's energetic residue. And instead of your clothes, it clings to your subtle body. The subtle body, the luminous energy field that surrounds and interpenetrates your physical body, called by different names across different traditions but recognized universally, has its own kind of skin, its own membrane, and that membrane accumulates residue the way physical surfaces accumulate dust. Quietly, gradually, until the buildup is thick enough that you can feel it without being able to name it. When the subtle body is clean and clear, divine light moves through you naturally. You feel connected, inspired, present. Things flow. You feel, in the most literal sense, illuminated. When the subtle body is crusted with residue, from other people's pain, from your own unexpressed anger, from grief you haven't moved through, from years of spiritual neglect, that flow stops. You feel flat, disconnected, like the volume of life has been turned down, like you are reaching for something just beyond your fingertips, and you can never quite close the gap. That gap is not a spiritual failing. It is not proof that you're not advanced enough. It is not punishment. It is just residue, and residue can be removed. This is the part of Mary's teaching that changed something fundamental in how I understand spiritual practice. Before I encountered this, I thought purification was about being good enough, elevated enough, morally clean enough, and that framing is exhausting and punishing, and honestly, it keeps people spiritually stuck for years, because it makes the problem about who you are rather than what's on you. You are not dirty. You are covered, and water, conscious, intentional water, drunk with presence and direction, is how you take the covering off. From the inside, here is what Mary's tradition actually taught about how to use water for the soul. Not the ceremony, the mechanics. The teaching rests on a single foundational principle. Water does not just nourish the physical body. When approached with precise, conscious intention, water moves through the interior of your energy field and begins dissolving the accumulated residue in your subtle body from within. But, and this is the part that almost no one ever tells you, the intention must be formed and held before the water ever touches your lips. This is not a small detail. This is the entire difference between drinking water and doing a soul practice. When you form your intention after you've already started drinking, you are trying to steer something that has already begun moving without direction. The water has already entered your body, but it has received no instruction. It is doing the physical work only, because that's all it was asked to do. When you form your intention before, when you hold the glass in both hands, fully present, and consciously tell the water what you need from it, you are activating its etheric and akashic layers before it enters you. You are, in the most precise sense, programming the water for the work it's about to do inside you. Remember what Mary said to her student. Before it touches your lips, know what you are asking it to take. That instruction was not poetic. It was technical. It was the most important step of the entire practice delivered in one quiet sentence. In the Magdalene mystical lineage, the act of purification through water was understood to move through three essential states. Not three steps, states of being. There is a difference. A step is mechanical. A state is something you actually enter. The first state is acknowledgement. This is where you bring into conscious awareness what you are carrying. Not analyzing it, not judging it, just naming it, feeling its weight, holding it up the way the young woman held up her burdens before she lifted that cup. The act of acknowledgement is not weakness. It is a form of power, because what you refuse to acknowledge, you cannot release. It stays in your field indefinitely, because you keep accidentally re-anchoring it by refusing to look at it directly. The second state is release. This is the active phase, the moment the water enters you, and you consciously direct the residue you've acknowledged into the water's current moving through you. Not with force, with permission. You are not scrubbing yourself clean from the inside. You are allowing the water to take what you no longer need to carry. The water is not passive in this moment. It is doing something real inside you. But it can only do it if you meet it consciously. The third state is reception. This is the most overlooked part, and I think it's the most important. After the water has received what you released, after the cleansing has moved through you, there is a moment where the subtle body is briefly, genuinely open. The residue is loosened. The field has space in it. And in that window, you can consciously receive what you want to fill that space. Because here's something Mary's tradition makes very clear. Nature does not leave a vacuum unfilled. If you cleanse the subtle body and fill the space with nothing intentional, something will fill it anyway. Whatever is in your environment, whatever emotional pattern you default to, whatever the next anxious thought is, that will rush in and occupy the space you just cleared. The practice of reception is about consciously choosing what moves into that space. Peace, clarity, connection to the light that is already yours. The specific quality of being that you want to carry into the rest of your day. The water carries that in too. The same intelligence that carried the residue out now carries the light in. The first time I did this with full presence, not going through the motions but genuinely moving through all three states, something shifted that I still find difficult to put into words. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't a vision. It was more like a recalibration, like something that had been slightly out of tune quietly moved back into alignment. And I've spoken to enough people who've done this practice properly to know it isn't just me. This works, not because of magic, because of what water actually is. Here it is. Simple. But don't let the simplicity fool you, because what I'm about to describe is going to sound so ordinary that part of your mind is going to resist taking it seriously. A glass of water. That's it. That's the vessel. And I need you to hear me when I say, the simplicity is not a limitation. The simplicity is the entire point. Mary's tradition was never interested in making the sacred complicated. Complexity serves institutions. It does not serve you. What serves you is something so precise, so repeatable, so available, that you can do it every single day with nothing more than what you already have in your home. A glass of water, your full presence, and the knowledge of what you're actually doing. Here is the practice in 3 phases. Phase 1, before the water touches your lips. Pick up your glass of water, but don't drink yet. Hold it in both hands. Not one hand, both. This matters. Both hands create a closed circuit of your own bioelectric field around the vessel. You are not just holding a glass. You are bringing the water into your energy field before it enters your body. You are beginning the conversation before the first word. Now look at the water. Actually look at it. Not through it, not past it, at it. Feel the temperature of the glass against your palms. Feel the slight weight of it. And as you do this, bring your full attention to your chest. To the center of your chest specifically. Because in the esoteric anatomy that Mary's tradition worked with, the heart center is not just an emotional organ. It is the primary gateway between the physical body and the subtle body. It is where the inner light either flows freely or sits blocked. Ask yourself honestly, right now, in this moment, what does that center feel like? Is it open? Is it tight? Is there something sitting on it that feels heavy, stuck, contracted? Whatever you find, name it, silently or aloud. There is grief here. There is anxiety here. There is something I've been carrying that isn't mine. Don't analyze it. Don't explain it. Just name it and let it be named. This is your acknowledgement. The first state. The first movement of the practice. Now, hold the glass up slightly. Not dramatically. Just enough to feel like you are consciously offering it something. And speak to the water. Silently or aloud, whichever feels true to you. Say something like this. You are alive. I am alive. What I am carrying, receive it. What I need, bring it. Your own words are fine. Better than fine, actually. Water responds to genuine intention more than perfect phrasing. But the structure of that statement matters. You are acknowledging the water's living intelligence, you are naming the exchange, and you are opening yourself to receive as well as release. The water in your hands has now been spoken to. Its etheric and akashic layers have been activated by your conscious intention. It is ready. Phase 2, the moment of drinking. This is the most important 30 seconds of the practice. Bring the glass to your lips. And before you swallow, hold the water in your mouth for just a moment. 3 to 5 seconds. Not long, just enough to feel it. Feel its temperature. Feel it sitting on your tongue. Feel the aliveness of it making contact with the inside of you. In that moment, visualize the heaviness you named in phase 1. Give it a color if that helps. Something dark or murky or dense. See it gathered in your chest center, in that heart space you located in phase 1. Now swallow, slowly, and as the water moves down your throat and into your body, watch it in your mind's eye become light. Not water anymore. Light. A clean, clear, luminous blue-white current moving directly into your chest. Moving directly into the place where the heaviness was sitting. Feel it hit. Feel the contact between the incoming light and the accumulated weight. This is the release state. You are not forcing anything out. You are introducing something so clean, so luminous, so fundamentally alive, that what was dark and heavy simply cannot maintain its hold in the presence of it. In the hidden teachings, this moment is described as the meeting of waters, The water you bring in consciously carrying divine light meets the stagnant internal waters of unprocessed emotion and old energetic residue. And the living water transforms the stagnant water. Not through force, through frequency. Drink the rest of the glass slowly. With each swallow, feel the light spreading. From the chest outward, into the shoulders, down the arms, into the belly, up into the throat and the head. You are not just hydrating your physical body. You are literally feeding the light body, the luminous energy system that the physical body is rooted in. Something I do personally that most teachings skip over entirely. I breathe in through my nose between sips. A slow, full breath. And with each inhale I draw the light I just swallowed upward, from the belly through the chest, up through the crown of the head. The breath becomes the current that carries the water's purifying intelligence through the full length of the subtle body. This small addition changed the practice for me more than almost anything else. Phase 3, the closing. After the last sip, set the glass down, but don't move yet. Put one hand on your chest, right over the heart center. Feel the warmth there. Feel the subtle change in that space from when you began. It may be slight, it may be significant, but something will be different if you were genuinely present throughout. Now breathe in fully, and as you breathe in, consciously receive. This is the reception state. The heaviness has been moved. The light has entered. The field is open. And now you are choosing what fills it completely. Say inwardly or aloud, I receive clarity. I receive the light that is already mine. I am clean from the inside out. Feel that. Don't just say it. Feel the truth of it in your chest under your hand. The light that came in with the water is not foreign to you. It is not something being added from outside. It is your own original light, the light the tradition says was always there, always whole, always luminous, being reminded of itself, being uncovered rather than created. That's the entire practice. 1 glass of water, 3 phases, under 2 minutes, and what it does over time is cumulative. The first day you may feel a subtle shift, a quiet one. By the end of a week of doing this daily, you will feel something you haven't felt in a long time. A kind of baseline clarity in your energy, a steadiness, a sense that you are moving through your days from a cleaner, lighter starting point. The light you saw in the thumbnail that brought you here, the burst from the chest as water enters the body, that is not artistic license. That is exactly what this practice does. That light was always there. You are simply learning, finally, how to uncover it. I want you to notice something, because I think it matters enormously for how seriously you take what we've been exploring together. The structure of this practice, conscious intention directed at water before drinking, water used as a vehicle for subtle body purification from within, the 3-movement arc of acknowledgement, release, and reception, does not belong uniquely to Mary's tradition. It appears in forms that are unmistakably related, across traditions that had little or no direct contact with each other. In Jewish mystical practice, the mikveh, the sacred immersion bath used for thousands of years, is far more than a hygiene ritual. Scholars of Kabbalah, the Jewish mystical tradition, understand the mikveh as a literal return to a primordial state of purity, total reset, and the intention held during that immersion was considered as essential as the water itself. The water without the intention was understood as just water. It is the conscious mind meeting the living intelligence of water that creates the transformation. Always the inner meeting first. Always. In the Hindu tradition, the ritual of Achamana, the sacred act of sipping small amounts of water with precise intention before prayer or spiritual practice, is one of the oldest documented examples of exactly what we are discussing today. Not bathing, not immersion, drinking. Small, conscious, deliberate sips of water with specific awareness of what the water is being asked to do inside the body and the subtle field. This practice is thousands of years old, and it is structurally identical to what Mary taught. In the earliest layers of Christian mystical practice, before ceremony replaced inner experience, water was understood as a carrier of divine light that could enter the body and transform from within. The mystics who preserved this understanding were not interested in the outer ritual. They were always pointing at the inner one, always pointing at what happens when conscious water meets the interior of a human being who is fully present and fully willing. These are not coincidences. They are echoes. When the same teaching surfaces independently in Jewish mysticism, in Hindu sacred practice, and in the specific lineage carried by Mary Magdalene, something true is being pointed at, something real, something about the actual nature of water and the actual nature of the human soul that human beings keep discovering, keep losing, and keep finding again. This is my genuine conviction. When you find the same essential teaching encoded in multiple independent traditions across thousands of years, you are not looking at religion. You are looking at discovered truth. The kind of truth that doesn't belong to any one tradition because it belongs to everyone. Mary, as a Jewish woman living in a Hellenistic world at the intersection of multiple wisdom streams, would have had access to all of these currents simultaneously. She was not inventing something new. She was transmitting something ancient with a precision and an intimacy that outer religious forms couldn't hold. And the transmission was always meant to reach ordinary people. People without temples. People without priests. People who had only their own intention, a glass of water, and the willingness to show up fully present. That means you, right now, exactly as you are. What if water doesn't just clean what's on you? What if it can reach what's inside you at a level even deeper than we've discussed? I want to take you one layer further, because there is a dimension of this teaching that is almost never discussed in modern spiritual circles. And I think it's the most extraordinary part of everything Mary's tradition preserved. We've talked about the etheric layer of the subtle body, the life force field, the layer that accumulates residue from daily life. But the subtle body doesn't stop there. Beyond the etheric, the ancients described what they called the astral body. And the astral body is not just an energy field. It is the layer of the self that carries memory. Deep memory. Not just the memories you can locate in your biography. The fears that have no origin you can find in your own life. The grief that feels larger than anything you've personally experienced. The patterns that repeat across relationships no matter how much inner work you do. The inexplicable weight that was there before you were old enough to have earned it. In the esoteric understanding, these are astral impressions. Old ones, sometimes very old. And they influence your life, your choices, your relationships, your recurring patterns, from below the surface of conscious awareness. Quietly, persistently, like a current running under still water. Here is what gets me most about this teaching. Water, drunk with deep and sustained intention over time, can reach that layer too. Not in a single practice. This is the deeper work. The work of weeks and months of consistent, conscious engagement. But the direction of travel is clear from the very first glass. Each time you drink water with genuine presence and genuine intention, you are not just clearing the surface layer. You are slowly and cumulatively reaching deeper. The water is finding its way further in, the way water always finds its way, not by force, but by persistence. Not by breaking through, but by dissolving, quietly, what was never meant to stay. Rupert Sheldrake, the British biologist and researcher known for his pioneering work on morphic resonance, the radical and rigorously argued idea that memory is not stored in the brain alone, but exists within invisible fields that living systems both contribute to and draw from, has written about water's potential role as a field conductor, a medium through which patterns of consciousness can travel, be stored, and be transformed. His language is scientific, but what he is pointing at is, in structure and in implication, precisely what the mystical traditions have always claimed about water's deepest nature. The convergence of that, a rigorous modern researcher arriving at the same conclusion from an entirely different direction as a teaching preserved across 2,000 years, is something I find deeply, quietly significant. It tells me we are standing at the edge of a rediscovery, that the ancient knowledge is not receding further into the past. It is moving toward us. Mary's teaching about water was never meant to be the property of a mystery school. It was never meant to be kept behind closed doors, available only to initiates who had passed the right tests. It was always meant to be practiced by ordinary people, in ordinary homes, with nothing more than the water they already had and the soul they already carried. The most radical thing she understood was this: the divine is not far. It is not above you. It is not locked away in doctrine or hierarchy or stone buildings. It is as close as the water in your hands. You have been near water your entire life. Think about that for a moment. Every single day, without interruption. Water has been part of your existence since before you were born. You spent 9 months surrounded by it, held in it, nourished through it. And somewhere in you, beneath all the noise and the distraction and the layers of forgetting, some part of you has always known it was more than just a physical substance. You know that feeling. You've had it. Drinking a glass of water on a morning when you were genuinely present and feeling something you couldn't quite name, something almost like recognition. Standing near the ocean, and feeling something inside you go quiet in a way it almost never does anywhere else. Crying, genuinely and fully, and noticing that you feel cleaner afterward. Lighter. Like something was moved through you rather than just out of you. That's not imagination. That is the part of you that remembers. The part that already knows, at some level below the rational mind, that water is alive. That it receives. That it carries. That it responds. That it can do, when you approach it consciously, far more than sustain the physical body. Here is what I believe Mary Magdalene's most essential gift was. And this is my deepest personal conviction about everything we've covered today. It was not a secret formula. It was not a hidden ceremony that only initiates could perform. It was a relationship with the living intelligence of water, a relationship with your own subtle body, a relationship with the part of you that is already clean, already whole, already luminous, underneath everything that has accumulated on top of it. You are not trying to become pure. You are uncovering what was always already there. That is the teaching, in its simplest, most direct form. That is what Mary carried and what she passed on. Not to the institution, not to the hierarchy, to a young woman standing in the dark outside her door, heavy with things she couldn't name. To anyone willing to pick up a glass of water in both hands and actually be present with it. Tonight, try the practice. Just once. Not to prove anything, not to achieve anything. Just to see what happens when you bring your full consciousness to something you do every single day. Pick up your glass of water in both hands. Feel its weight. Name what you're carrying. Speak to the water. Tell it what you need it to take and what you need it to bring. Hold it in your mouth for just a moment before you swallow. Feel the light enter you as it goes down. Breathe it upward through your chest. And then, hand over your heart, receive something good to fill the space. 2 minutes. That's all. And then decide for yourself whether she was right. You've been walking past a door your entire life. It was never locked. The only thing that was ever required was the willingness to open it. If something in what you just heard moved something inside you, recognize this. What you received today was the version this platform permits me to share. The filtered layer. The one they allow. YouTube has demonetized this channel for coming this close to what has been deliberately kept from you. And that response alone tells you everything about how much this knowledge is not supposed to reach you. I am not retreating. I am not diluting. I am going further in. But I can't fight them alone. I need your support to keep this mission alive. No advertiser will back this. No algorithm will protect it. The only thing that keeps this transmission alive is people who felt something genuine here and chose to follow it further. If that is you, click the link in the description and join me on Patreon right now. The moment you step through that door, you enter a completely different depth of this work. Unfiltered teachings, esoteric member-only sessions, exclusive audio transmissions, and the material that will never see the light of this platform. Most people will feel the signal and let the noise of ordinary life swallow it whole. You won't.